this session, I'll be taking you through quality control, which is governed by professional standards. Quality control is governed by two particular professional standards, being ISQC 1 and ISA 220. ISQC 1 deals with firm-wide policies and procedures that an auditing firm or a firm of professional accountants is supposed to comply with, whereas ISA 220 deals with engagement-specific quality control policies and procedures that a firm should comply with. Both these standards should be adhered to during the course of an audit. Let's look at our learning objectives. So our first objective is to be aware of the legislation requirements and the need that is there for a firm to have policies and procedures to ensure audit quality control. The next objective that we want to meet with this lecture is that we should be able to explain and discuss and apply the elements of quality control that is relevant to the firm as an or at an individual audit level or at firm-wide levels. And these should be applied to the audit engagement. And let's have a bit of a background of quality control. So, as is the norm, our background will ask particular questions. So the first question that we'll ask in trying to understand the background behind quality control is, why is there need for a system of quality control? Why should the auditor or the professional accountant want to ensure quality control? So firstly, it's possibly so that the professional accountants are sure or they ensure that the firm and its personnel are adhering to or complying with the applicable professional and legal as well as regulatory requirements to comply with quality. Next is also to make sure that the reports that are produced by the firm are appropriate given the circumstances. We then go on to look at what are those requirements that should be complied with. And those requirements, as I earlier alluded, are found or are guided by ISQC 1, which I said earlier deals with firm-wide quality control. The second requirement that should be complied with is ISA 220. And as I said earlier, it deals with the actual audit of the financial statements. You find that ISQC 1 has the same elements that should be dealt with in ISA 220. So we'll look at ISQC 1 and its elements. ISQC 1 has 6 ISQC, and those 6 elements should be complied with. When they have been complied with as a whole, then the professional accountant or the firm is satisfied that quality was adhered to. They'll be satisfied that there was quality control during the course of this audit. So firstly, we'll look at engagement performance. And these are policies and procedures that should be adhered to ensure that there's been consistency of quality from one engagement to the other. It sets out the criteria within which the appointment of the engagement partner should be done, as well as the quality control reviewer. So we are guided to say who qualifies to be an engagement partner and who qualifies to be a quality control reviewer as part of engagement performance. It also sets out the responsibilities of the engagement partner, and that is to say that the appropriate supervision and direction of the audit is the responsibility of the engagement partner. And it also sets out that the engagement partner can also consult with, let's say, the engagement quality control reviewer, or with another auditor who is probably another partner, if there are areas where the engagement partner would like to make sure that, or is not so sure of, but if they do not, or if they continue being unsure of those areas, then the quality of the audit will not be up to standard. You will find that under engagement performance, the engagement partner should then, or is responsible for the review of this audit. So the ultimate responsibility of the engagement performance of an audit, or of an audit engagement, lies with the engagement partner. Next, we have the human resources. So that is the second leg of quality control, or the other leg of quality control. And this deals with areas or issues such as staff training, that the firm should always ensure that its staff has been trained, whether it's on new standards or upcoming standards, or changes in legislation, changes in the regulatory environment. So there should be staff training. And if we're going through a scenario, for example, and it is mentioned that the staff, or there was no training of the engagement members or the firm members, then that is a concern, as it is non-compliance with the HR leg of ISQC 1. The human resources leg also deals with the recruitment policies. Who should be recruited? How should they be recruited? As well as promotion policies and retention of staff. So we'll find that the engagement partner should be satisfied that the engagement team has the appropriate knowledge, they have the appropriate competencies and capabilities to carry out the audit. And that is within the human resources bracket. Next, we move on to client acceptance. And client acceptance, this was dealt with in more detail when we're dealing with the pre-engagement activities. But ISQC 1 states that there should be policies and procedures to evaluate the competences and capabilities of the engagement team. There should also be client investigation that should be carried out in accordance with the requirements of ISQC 1. However, this we refer to, or I refer you back to the lecture on pre-engagement activities. And you find that at engagement level, the engagement partner should be satisfied that appropriate quality control procedures or appropriate client acceptance procedures, whether it's acceptance or continuance, have been carried out and have been followed. So this is the engagement partner's way of ensuring a quality audit in as far as client acceptance is concerned. Next, we've got the ethical requirements. Now, these ethical requirements were dealt with in more detail under the CPC, which is the Code of Professional Conduct. And the role of the engagement partner is to always remain alert that all ethical requirements, more so the fundamental principles, have been adhered to before the audit, during the audit, and after the audit, and as far as an engagement of audit is concerned. So their role is to make sure that the appropriate actions have been taken. That is to say, should there be safeguards to ensure compliance with ethics? And have those safeguards been implemented? And have those safeguards been appropriate to minimize threats to the fundamental principles? The other role with regards to ISQC1 in terms of quality control and in terms of ethics or ethical requirements is that communication should be done to staff about the importance of complying and adhering to those ethical standards that are detailed in the CPC, as well as ensuring that annual independence declarations have been signed, and specific procedures such as rotation of engagement partner have been complied with, as well as making sure that staff trainings on ethics or on ethical requirements have been carried out. Moving on to the next leg, which is leadership. So leadership is there, and it is carried out by the leadership of the firm. And the person that is mainly responsible at firm-wide is the CEO of the firm, or otherwise known as the managing partner. They should assume the responsibility to ensure that from engagement to engagement, quality control has been conducted. And quality is consistent from one engagement to the other. We'll then move to monitoring. So you'll find that with monitoring, this is a leg of quality control that requires that regular or cyclical inspections of engagement partners or engagement activities are carried out. And there should be systems or policies and procedures that should deal with any complaints or any non-conformities to quality control. These should be detailed out. And not to say a firm will start thinking about what procedures to carry out or what sanctions that they should implement when there's been non-conformity or when there's been a breach of quality control. These procedures should be detailed out. And so that is, in a nutshell, what quality control deals with under ISQC 1. I still recommend that you go through your module, you go through your slides, and you go through ISQC 1 to have a more detailed understanding of the requirements. We'll look at the nature of questions. As you know, yes, you will understand ISQC 1, but how is it examined? What should you focus on? Or what is the type, what is the manner in which ISQC or quality control as a whole is examined? So you could be asked a question to say, comment on the quality control issues raised by so and so. It could be the audit manager's suggestions to improve the audit firm's profitability. So you might find in such a question or in such a scenario, the audit manager might be suggesting ways to promote or to improve the firm's profitability. But these ways might not be complying with ISQC 1 or ISA 220. They might not be complying with the requirements of maintaining and adhering to quality control of an engagement. So you as the student, when you're commenting, you're looking out for triggers in the scenario where quality control will be breached if the requirements or if the suggestions of that person are adhered to. Another way to be examined is to say the required could come and it could be saying in relation to the audit of X Limited, evaluate the quality control, ethical and other professional matters arising in respect of planning and performance of the audit. Again, you're supposed to read through the scenario. You might be referred to a specific working paper or a specific section of the scenario. Read through that, pick out what areas are not in conformance or what areas are not complying with ISQC 1 or ISA 220. But I'm sure you realize that to be able to answer these questions and to do justice to these questions, that is to earn good marks on these questions, it means you need to have an understanding. You need to know what are those quality standards. You need to know what is set out in ISQC 1 or what is set out in ISA 220 for you to be able to pick out that there is a non-compliance, there is a non-conformity. Once you have that understanding, such questions will not be difficult for you to answer and garner a lot of marks. In terms of application of your knowledge, the knowledge that you've just gathered, I refer you to the end of chapter practice question. See if you're able to pick out any concerns, see if you're able to answer such a question. And that is all from me for this session. I look forward to seeing you in the next session.